an iLock.
As thinking about this first draft, it is actually ready. So without further ado, the first game between BREN Esports and Elite 8. Let's head on into the draft.
Right. Jumping straight into draft. And BREN Esports, like you mentioned earlier on, yesterday they did not quite play on stream, so it's quite fresh for us as to how BREN Esports will fare in 2.9.1. And the player to watch coming out for Elite 8 now is definitely official Hein. He pulled out a Baptiste yesterday, and he just played it so very well, and he just put out so much damage in the early game. But the first phase of bans will be coming through from the side of BREN Esports. We do see the Black Feather, classic ban, and from the side of E8, Lance ban.
Yeah, Arden pick, pretty standard. It's BREN Esports like to pick Arden because he's a strong captain. He's in the meta quite well. If you get that echo on the gauntlet, it's so annoying to try and play against that. It's really hard as a team to play correctly against double gauntlet because maybe someone stuck inside between two walls, someone stuck inside and someone stuck outside everything. You don't really know what to do. You don't know even if you've got a Lyra with an arcane passage, you don't know where to go, who to help, and when to crucible. And so that is really annoying to play against. Grace, another interesting pick actually, because we've seen much more Lyra, Catherine, and other captains as opposed to Grace. But she's been first picked, and the Kestrel ban, that's probably a ban away from BREN Esports. Elite 8 don't want to play the Kestrel. They have the next picks. They could have picked it themselves. Don't want to play it, and it's really annoying to play against.
And as for Grace, as a pickup, we've seen Elite 8 coming out with Grace in the previous patch itself. And although in this particular patch, Grace hasn't quite been favored, but we did see Impunity pulling it out and definitely help change the tides of battle. So I kind of do understand the pickup coming through from Elite 8. However, the second ban coming out from BREN Esports, that Vox, BREN Esports is definitely respecting Vox in 2.9.1. Else, why would you even ban a Vox? I mean, we saw Impunity coming through, and Impunity just played so strong. Death Q on that Vox was just insane. But even as a blind ban, Vox is just not worthy at this point in time as compared to the other heroes that are out there, like Rhyme. Rhyme is a very good ban now. Reza maybe not Reza, maybe not Reza, but maybe the Baptiste against Elite 8.
I'm very surprised by this Idris second pick on B-side by Elite 8. We haven't seen much Idris at all being played, being banned. But Elite 8 have decided to just first pick it, not knowing any comps that BREN Esports are going for. They're probably going to go with a CP Idris. We might even see Weapon. I've seen a little bit of Weapon Idris come back into the meta with the Assassins being stronger. So Weapon Idris obviously synergizes as well with Assassins because he basically isn't an Assassin himself. Now, what BREN Esports can return this with, they could do a Weapon Duel. They're going to go another Alpha. BREN Esports going, yeah, that worked really well for Impunity last game. Let's go for Alpha. She seems OP this patch, so interesting what Alpha's going to build. We're probably going to see the Alpha Shock into Dragon's Eye with defense up from there. But you never know, maybe we'll see a Clockwork on this time in Alpha. Maybe we'll see Broken Myth as opposed to Dragon's Eye. Really interesting what that's going to go with. And the last laner, obviously Vox out the table, as quite a lot of three of the meta laners are off the fold. Black for the Vox Kestrel. So I said Jewel could work, Glaive could work really well against the Idris, and I'm interested in what BREN Esports decided last pick.
Pato. There you have it. A Pato coming through from BREN Esports. And while you're actually going through all the laners that BREN Esports can actually pick up, in my head I was thinking Baron Pato, definitely Pato. There you go. And then we do see a Pato coming through from BREN Esports. They are bringing back 2.8. On to 2.9. We've seen a couple of Pato pickups here and there in challenges, but overall, I personally don't think that Pato is a good hero now. I think she's been reverted back to where she stems from. And
she didn't really get much of a change to her weapon power path, really. I mean, the health changes were kind of annoying to Weapon Petal, but it's going to be a Weapon Petal lane, which will work against this Weapon Idris quite well. Weapon Idris will be able to dive in pretty effectively against the Petal, but once it gets towards mid to late game, once Petal gets 2 items, Soul Blade, first Tornado Trigger, it's going to be very hard for Elite 8 to try and kite away from this. The Sky pick is, I guess, kind of an Alpha counter. I would have much preferred to see a Cruel or a Rhyme. Rhyme is fantastic against Alpha. Not being banned, it's still available. And so I think that would have been a much better pick from Elite 8 to go with that, because Sky can be Alpha if you play it well, but with an Ardent, Alpha can just keep up, can catch up to the Sky, and it's going to be really tough for Elite 8.
Yep, and I don't know. Like looking at the team comp coming through from both teams, I want to say Elite 8 team comp definitely look more robust, look a little more, meta. But overall, equally from both teams, they picked out equally very not meta heroes in 2.9.1. We have a Petal out of the blue, although that is what BREN esports like to play. And then we have an Idris and Grace coming through from Elite 8. But of course, Grace and Idris works very well together because Idris really wants to jump into the back lines and Grace can just provide those divine intervention. And Grace can just help out, indirectly or directly with those benediction or retributions, basic attacks. And grants that holy shield and all the good things, and Grace can bring to the table. But an Idris pickup going up against an Arden, is just immediately locked in. So it is quite questionable, like you mentioned earlier on. But coming out from BREN esports, that Petal pickup, I don't know. I mean, I'm at a loss.
You wanted it. You wanted the Petal pickup.
I mean, it's quite sensible for BREN esports to bring out a Petal. I mean, Mr. Jim is just so very comfortable on it. Sync one as well. At the end of it all, looking at the entire roster, there are not much weapon carries available. And the side of BREN esports usually would settle for only two. And that'll be Baron, if not, then Petal. So I'm just guessing Petal for, just to throw it out there. I didn't quite expect it to be brought out at all.
Yeah, Baron is not actually a bad pick this patch. He can do loads of damage. If you let Baron scale up and don't snowball him, then he's pretty much unkillable because he'll kill you first with 700 crit, despite the fact you've got a metal jacket. So I think Baron could have been a pick, but it's much safer to go with the Petal. He scales up quicker, has a bit longer range, and has more mobility really than Baron with higher movement speed and with the trampoline. So I think it does make sense to go with it. Maybe they're more comfortable as well with that massive attack speed weapon Petal you can get. So there is going to be Pew Pew Petal. That's very exciting. We're going to see. That's the most fun skin to watch.
Did you just say Pew Pew Petal?
Pew Pew Petal. That's the technical name for Legendary Bug Petal. Because when Petal makes those basic attacks, it goes pew pew as if it's. I think Ringo says that. Maybe Gwen, but yeah, it's pretty nice. Nice Petal skin. And I think early game rotations are going to be pretty similar from both these teams. No one's going to go too aggressive. Alpha level 1 is so much worse than level 2. I think they're going to start their backs together. We might see Elite 8 go a bit aggressive with the Grace, but I don't think so.
I mean, coming into this game itself, it is quite a gamble, if I were to say anything, because it is just down to just execution of team comp and who can just come out on top, whether or not Petal will be allowed to farm up, and whether or not there's too many variables to count, right? Let's imagine this perfect scenario where Official Hind can just get over, all those minions and just get on top of Petal, forward barrage, and Petal will just very quickly goes down. That way, okay. Right? Okay, my bad, because I totally forgot. I thought it was, I'm casting alongside Minimizer. But of course, for this game, I will be talking about this entire weird game with I Request a Duo. So, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, and it looks like I'm here just in time to catch out the first fight. As we see the Alpha going in with the Prime Directive and trying to land those core charges, we see Mr. Jim and Alpha already with those level 2s, and they're going to be able to pick up the first blood for themselves. Guessing going fairly low, however, needs to be careful. Grace going to jump in there, but gets caught out and punished for it. Prime Directive going to land, and Mr. Jim on this weapon power pill. It's instantly paying off for the side of BREN esports, picking up the double kill to start the game with. So, I heard you guys throughout the draft and you were just saying it's going to be this weapon power pedal because why not? I'm surprised because it definitely was something that was working out for them in the previous patch, but they've come into this patch in the new 2.9. There's been a lot of changes. We haven't seen BREN Esports just yet, so this is our first sighting of them into Split 2 at least, and it will be interesting to see how this plays out towards, especially throughout the whole game, whether those were just some early good kills or, you know, BREN Esports being so comfortable on this weapon power pedal that they'll make it work no matter what.
Yep, and I've mentioned this before in the current patch itself, or if I remember correctly, I did mention this before, and another fight will just break out.
Yep, and we see Arden going to be able to pick up the kill onto Grace, of course, with the help of Sync1 on that alpha there, but they're just going to chase Sky back into a lane. I'm not sure, it looks like Idris will be able to protect them, Official Hein able to back off, but I was just looking at the overall kind of team comps we got going on here, because we have seen a similar team comp on the side of Elite 8 as of yesterday, but it was, instead of the Idris pickup, it was a Black Feather, and that was working out really well against a team comp that was a bit strange, kind of like this one, when you consider things being strange. I mean, they had the Alpha, they had the Arden, but they had a Rona instead, and I think that's the difference here. That's not full engage, but it's more balanced. You have that backliner with Petal, but Petal can also chase. And it might work out more so for them, because you can see as Guessing getting knocked up by that Holy Nova, it's really how it falls into the kit of Grace being a very good defense hero and offense, just opening up those opportunities for their carries to get onto the enemy. And meanwhile, throughout that match, it's like the question of, you know, is Sky going to be good against Alpha? But I think more or less we look at it in a team comp sense. And as long as Han Jaegers is there on that Grace, you know, I think Sky for the most part can just jump around the fight freely, and the focus of BREN Esports is elsewhere.
Yep, and I think I remember correctly, if I remember correctly, I actually did mention this in the previous patch in 2.8, that Pato experiences a very, very weird power spike, but Sync1 going down there.
Sync1 going to get put into the infinite reboot stage, but Anime Save Me very low on the backline. Sync1 is going to use Prime Directive onto Official Hein, but meanwhile, Han Jaeger's picking up the kill onto Mr. Jim. So they need to be a bit more careful there. Guessing may have not had the Vanguard just in time, and that's the thing. They've got to kind of really work on their synergy and on their engages, because early on, although you can play more aggressively and build more aggressively with that Arden on your team, you also need to be careful about it. You talked about in the previous match between Impunity and Renegades about aggression and controlled aggression, and I think that's something that applies here in this game too.
Yep, and to continue on the point that I really wanted to continue since just now, please, no more fight, please. But you know, the point that I really wanted to make was that Pato, if I remember correctly, has got this very weird power spike. She has a very good early game, she falls over the mid game, and then she kind of gets like kinda-ish strong in the late game after she completes two more Tyrant's Monaco, if not two more Tornado Trigger. But you know, coming into the mid game, Pato will just be very, very weak and will just be trumped by Official Hein on the Sky, definitely, because the Minions will go down, you know, almost immediately after a single tick or two ticks of all barrages, and then you have just Guessing or the Sync1 just be the only one jumping through in. So if Sync1 jumps in and all three members of Elite 8 just targets and locks Sync1 down on the Alpha, then it will be quite an easy game for, you know, Elite 8 to get past in that mid game. Because as we all know, Official Hein on the Sky, we have Han Jaeger on that Idris. They kind of start soaring and they become better in that mid game. So they will try to oppress Pato then, and Pato kind of wear off then until Pato gets that Tornado Trigger. If not, then, you know, double Tyrant's Monaco before Pato will be relevant again. So that is one thing maybe Elite 8 will do and try to just take advantage of in the early game, in the mid game, sorry.
Yep, and Hanyegas with that Shroud step there, dodging out the Prime Directive, and now we see a bit of aggression coming out from the side of Elite 8 as Hanyegas going to Shimmer Strike in there, but he does force out the Fountain from his own team to save his life so he can escape. A bit of a mistake, noticing that going in quite deep to the enemy lines is not the play you want to be making. Instead, try play more reactionary and bait the side of BREN Esports in and leave it up to Sky to land that poke from afar. But right now, Elite 8 do want to be the aggressors, and they're going to try continue with it. There's still the Fountain already used on the side of BREN Esports, but meanwhile, it's going to be the Sky falling to Pedal. It's just the range on Pedal so ridiculous, and when you make that a weapon power pedal, when you make it the pew pew weapon power pedal especially, that's more dangerous than ever. As we see Sync1 gets the Vanguard, it's enough to get them the kill onto the Idris after the reboot, and Anime Save Me needs to be careful of Mr. Jim on this pedal, who's doing so much work as they push into this turret. It looks like Sky will be back up in lane to just help defend this first turret, not wanting to let it fall so early as Idris only making out the base at the moment, but Sync1 gonna jump in once again, and they managed to pick up the kill thanks to the Vanguard that's able to get them out of turret safely, even going in without the infinite reboot. And that's just the kind of aggression I talked about playing alongside Arden allows you to do. And we do see Elite 8 trying to chase them down. There's going to be the Fountain used on the side of BREN Esports, and they might be able to get the kills out of it. Sync1 able to pick up the Sky, does get the infinite reboot just in time, but Hanyegas was able to pick up that kill onto Mr. Jim once again. So it looks like still in a 1v1 situation, Mr. Jim is going to lose out to this Idris.
Very good aggression coming out from BREN Esports there, but a return turret taking might just be coming out from Elite 8. Whether or not they have got the damage, they have got the wave to just push into this turret will be another topic of discussion, and apparently they do.
Ooh, and there's going to be the gauntlet coming out from Guessing on that Arden, but you're right, a lot of aggression from both teams here, especially Elite 8 trying to look for that return turret. Now they are going to be holding their lane safely as we see Mr. Jim rotating back down with Sync1 into the jungle. So no further aggression coming out from the side of BREN Esports just yet. And Idris picking up that tension bow as the second item alongside of that Soul Blade they already had. So going to be doing a lot of damage, a lot of burst damage, especially what they're looking for. Trying to get into those key opportune moments when Arden doesn't have that Vanguard up. And Alpha, meanwhile, picking up that Dragon's Eye, which no reason not to. Just such a good item right now, especially on heroes like Alpha who want to go into the fight and stay in it. But they are leaving Guessing up alone to defend this turret, and it's going to go down. Meanwhile, Sync1 and Mr. Jim going to pick up that gold miner. So collecting 400 gold, but losing 300 per member over to the enemy team by losing that objective as well. I don't know if it's the right play to make, because I think losing an objective like the first turret there does give up a bit of ground, and it opens up Elite 8 to play even more aggressive and rotate that much more as a team.
I mean, if you think about it and you look over at the health of Elite 8's turret, it will be relatively easy for Mr. Jim to just, push in with the money, push in with the wave, and just take down that first turret very, very quickly. So giving up the first turret to take the gold mine, for me personally, looking at a gold point, it's definitely very, very worth it. But like you mentioned, for the control-wise of the jungle of the game, it will not be worth it. But BREN Esports definitely have to wait for their power spikes to come through, or for Mr. Jim's power spike to come through. Mr. Jim now already has got a Soul Blade into double tornado trigger. So very good attack speed, and on top of that has that overdrive onto that of the trampoline now. So very long range, very good attack speed, and can definitely just put out a lot of damage if constantly protected. And as mentioned, Sync1 just jumping into the front line forces the Elite 8 to just concentrate their firepower onto Sync1.
There's going to be the death from above as the engage coming out from the side of Elite 8, and Hanyegas is going to jump onto that backline with the Shimmer Strike, but getting taken down instantly by Mr. Jim. Just gets kited out. Sync1 actually going to be the one to pick up the kill, going in for the double kill onto the Sky, diving under that turret. Has the Vanguard just so tanky in this fight, putting out so much damage as well. And BREN Esports instantly going to make up for previously losing that turret, as you said, able to really quickly pick up that first turret, and it looks like they'll even be able to get a second one here as Mr. Jim clearing out the wave, pushing in with those A-Stub minions, and they're going to get a Crystal Sentry out of this one. So BREN Esports doing a bit of a risky play before. You're right, in terms of the gold economy, it really pushed them forwards that bit more than they were before, and now we see that it's really paying off, as they're seeing it's 28.2k gold over to 23.5, and it's going to mean that they took that risk of losing a certain amount of their map control, but they're going to be able to gain it back now gradually as they've taken out the second turret and that Crystal Sentry there.
Yep, and I apologize. Like, I sincerely apologize. Mr. Jim now is working towards the Tyrant Monaco. If not, then no, stop it. Do not do that anymore. I request do not do that to me. But BREN Esports is definitely just pushing the advantage now, right? Mr. Jim, I mentioned before, has to have that double tornado trigger to be able to put out that good enough damage, right? Good enough damage, and they basically moved late game into that of mid game by hyper farming Mr. Jim. Looking over at Sync1 sitting at 55 CS, and then we have Mr. Jim at 141 CS at 12 minutes in, and the gold miner definitely did help BREN Esports. And I did mention before, if any team were to come out with interesting team comps, it will be BREN Esports, and they will be the ones to be able to pull it off. Now, Anime Save Me actually missing that steal, Gauntlet being thrown down.
Yeah, there's going to be the Gauntlet. Meanwhile, Official Hein on that backline gets taken out instantly, and soon to fall is going to be Jaegers, followed by Anime Save Me. BREN Esports just cleaning through, proving that this weapon power comp still works. But even more so, we've talked about how are BREN going to be able to play this new patch, and they're definitely making good use of it. They're playing meta heroes like this Alpha at the moment, and Arden, just always being a great support pick, but very much so in this current meta, we've seen him be the first pick for quite a lot of times. So I think in that sense that BREN Esports show their understanding, show why they're currently third on the table in points, and have a very good chance to put up a fight against those teams like Renegades and Impunity. So I'm very excited to see just how well, whether it's only this match in the draft or what we'll see into the second match between these two teams, because right now BREN Esports looking so good. But just a thought that was brought up, or a statistic, that there's a change on the turret gold down to 200 gold for this current patch, I believe. So that does mean losing out that turret isn't as bad when you're going to be able to take the gold mine. I mean, gold mine giving out 400 gold to each member, over to the 200, you're still gaining double for each person. So definitely a big lead there. And when BREN Esports were just able to come back and take so much more from that one single loss, I think is definitely worth the risk and reward. And now it's put them in this state where they're just going into fights with so much confidence. Guessing, however, going to have the Gauntlet up in one more second. They don't need it. They're going to take down Grace instantly. Hun Jaeger's going down with a boom. This Alpha just so strong, using the Echo on the Gauntlet, but you're not going to need it. There's the Ace, and they're already pushing into the enemy base before Kraken is even up here. They might even get the game before it's up, and it looks like they're going for the crystal. BREN Esports looking to finish this one out, and they do. They get the crystal right before Kraken gets on the fold. Not even needed in this match. And wow, what a match to first see BREN Esports in the new split.
Well, I mean, BREN Esports weren't present yesterday, but I was expecting a lot coming out from BREN Esports. Just last split, the final week of last split, they actually beat Impunity 2-0. I know a lot of Impunity fanboys will be telling me, do not keep mentioning that. It's a loss, we accept that, but we have to move on. But no, because honestly, Impunity, one of the top dogs in Vainglory8 Southeast Asia. And if BREN Chong just coming in so very strong, and they weren't quite performing as well. I mean, they were kind of a new team from the Challenger Series. They just looked very strong, and suddenly, all of a sudden, like within a week, within a day, within the night, they just come back and they just went like, you know what, we are going to top the charts. We are going to be one of the strongest teams out there.
Yep, and with that, I will hand it off over to Mini Miter for you guys to go through the draft and just speculate on let us know what you think that the side of Elite 8 should do against BREN Esports, as they will be on the blue side this time. The power is in their hands for this first ban and first pick, so I'd like to hear about that.
So I'm still waiting.
I have muted myself.
There you go.
That is one way. I suppose that is one way to play weapon power battle. Go for complete damage. Who needs defense when you have Arden to give you a Vanguard? And yeah, it was well played in the end by BREN Esports. They really came through fantastically well. I was wondering if the Alpha could work as well as it did in the previous game when we saw Alpha, but Sync1 just answered with me, yes, Alpha can play just as well as when Blue Sea played it. So I'm really interested to see in this next draft if we see similar emphasis on Alpha, because it was really a kind of surprise pick, but did so much damage, so much work in these last two games.
Yep, and I wanted to mention earlier on, it is not wrong to try to push down at first turret, but that objective taking really have to be, very deliberate, where you actually take this turret and then you go in for the jungle push. Pressure in the jungle, put pressure in the lane. Therefore, taking the first turret is definitely worth it for you. But then what Elite 8 did was just take the first turret and they just backed up. They just played really passive. They knew the spike for Pato is coming soon after the second tornado trigger, and yet they did not push it, and they didn't push it in when Pato was weak. When Pato was weaker, the awkward power spike that Pato goes through in the mid game, they did not quite take advantage of that. And I guess looking at the team builds, looking at the builds coming through, at the point in time when Pato actually had the first tornado trigger, Idris did not quite have his items just yet, and thus I don't understand why they didn't quite want to push through.
Yeah, but for the second game, draft is ready. So without further ado, let's head on into the draft. I'm expecting a similar Black Feather ban, but as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Alpha is maybe more of a priority pick with a Rhyme ban, not sure.
I'm not sure. I mean, Elite 8 now on the blue side, and we have BREN Esports on the red side. Like you mentioned, Elite 8 yesterday constantly banning out Lance, Vox, and Glaive, but Celeste, but in this current game, going up against BREN Esports, they are not known to play Vox or Celeste. They are very known to play the Lance. Guessing X on the Lance is just incredible, but we do see, like you mentioned, the first phase of ban coming through, and that would be the Black Feather almost instantly just locked in and just removed from the hero roster. But coming through from BREN Esports, I'm not surprised if they will remove that Lance, and that is quite a surprise.
That sounds like a surprised face next year. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I wanted to say that they will just ban out the Rhyme, just maybe they want to pick out, I don't know. I mean, BREN Esports, like mentioned in the first game itself, they are very new. It's almost like it's the first day playing in 2.9.1, and it's quite a pleasant surprise coming out from them.
Yeah, I think it's a certainly different idea. Just ban away the Lance. We saw it a little bit before. We saw it last match. Lance was banned, but I don't think he's that much of a problem. But they're gonna carry on with what happened before, and this time Elite 8 gonna go for the impunity strategy of first picking Vox. It's really odd how Vox receives no buffs. He doesn't get changed in 2.9. And just everyone else gets changed around him. Loads of other heroes get buffed, nerfed, and Vox just goes, no, you can first pick me. I'm still a really, really good hero to pick this patch. But I suppose BREN Esports picked the Arden. They probably want to go for a pretty similar comp to what they went last game. I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe a Kestrel band, or no, we can see the Rhyme bands. This is baiting out an Alpha ban from Elite 8, and I think if Alpha isn't banned, it will be picked by BREN Esports most likely.
Yeah, there you go. We do expect the Rhyme coming out, a Rhyme ban coming through. Although I was expecting it as the first phase of ban, but eventually we see it. So all in all, I guess I was kind of right. I'm kind of swaying, and I'm not very, very sure of my words at this point. But Rhyme is very strong. Although we haven't quite seen a lot of emphasis as well coming out from the other teams for that Rhyme. But Vox, an interesting pickup. And there you have it, the Petal ban coming out from Elite 8. Although I personally don't think that BREN esports will settle for that Petal. Baron is still on the table, and Mr. Jim plays a rather mean Baron himself, and with damage changes reverted back to a couple of patches back, Baron seems to be quite intelligent choice for Mr. Jim. However, the setup BREN esports will settle for that Castro, whether played in the jungle or in lane. It's another question.
Yeah, most probably going to be a lane weapon Kestrel. That's what we've seen almost exclusively this patch and last patch as well, with the CP ratio being nerfed on Kestrel. It really made her less favourable in that position. And the Petal ban was mainly so that Elite 8 said, no, you're not going to get the same draft as last game. We're going to get rid of the Petal so that you can't secure that. And that means that Kestrel was left open. We saw Elite 8 banning away Kestrel away from BREN esports before. This time they had to let it through. They had to ban the Petal instead. This time Elite 8 are going, okay, we can pick Alpha. What are you going to do against it? You can't pick your Rhyme. You banned it away. You can't go Lance, which is normally quite good against Alpha. And so Elite 8 thinking, yeah, Alpha's a really good hero. Surprise, surprise. One game when Bluxty goes 12-0 on Alpha, and suddenly she's a priority pick. Lyra, a great hero to round out that comp. Elite 8 have got a really strong competition here. Now, BREN esports have got to pick their last counter pick as most likely a Crystal Power jungler. I suppose Ozo could work quite well. Batiste would be good against the Alpha. It wouldn't be the best because Vox is quite good against Batiste, and it doesn't really work with Kestrel. But I think Ozo could work well. So could something like a Taka. Just ignore the Alpha, just dive onto Vox. But again, it is tough for BREN esports to pick anything, and they're going to go for the Sky. BREN esports saying, okay, Elite 8, you couldn't beat Alpha with Sky, but we can.
Oh wow, that's quite a bold statement, whether it's coming from you or BREN esports. I'm not doubting their ability. They are just looking very strong as compared to Elite 8, but their drafting, I want to say that Elite 8 definitely have got the upper hand in this draft, and their draft just looks so much more robust. Lyra has seen as a priority. It has not been banned out in any of the phases this time round, and including the following game as well. But Elite 8 actually did ban out the Castro the last game. Thus, BREN esports maybe trying to play the mind game and just picking that Castro to go up against a Fox. We constantly say as casters that Castro can outpoke a Vox in the early game, but Vox's power spike comes so early because of how cheap Poison Shiv is. So with that Poison Shiv being picked up by Vox in the early game, then Vox can just out-sustain a Castro anytime. Unless, of course, we do see yet again BREN esports just putting a lot of pressure in that lane in the early game going up against this Vox. Then maybe it'll work. But then again, we have to consider as well that Lyra is constantly a threat. You know, the sustain that Lyra provides. And on top of that, you have the Alpha that can just go on top of the Castro, burst your Castro down, and just make her, a fastest way back to base. So, all in all, I want to say Elite 8 definitely came out on top of draft. I really like the draft coming out from the side of Elite 8.
It seems like we're thinking that Alpha is the way to go in this patch. Whoever gets Alpha seems to have the better draft, but we are going to have to wait and see how it's going to be executed. Early game is going to be, again, it's going to be passive from both sides. There's little reason for Sky to go in aggressive at level 1. If Alpha decides to fight you, then you have no Sui Strike to run away. And so it's most likely they're going to see both teams get into level 2. Then it's very likely we're going to see a fight. Alpha loves a level 2 power spike. Sky feels pretty confident once he gets level 2. Same with Kestrel. Arden not so much. And Lyra really is happy with level 2. So I think that will be a really big fight over the Elder Tree once everyone's leveled up. And then from that, we might see a bit of aggression from Elite 8 with the Alpha going in, but it won't last very long. You'll see Alpha maybe get one back rotation and then just farm her own jungle for pretty much the rest of the game until she hits at least level 6. And at that point, Crystal Sentry is spawned, so you're not going to be able to still farm away unless you manage to get the tier 2 turret from BREN esports.
But what I'd like to see coming up from Elite 8 this time is maybe the early game pressure and, just pushing down that early game tower, and then afterwards just continuously just pressure BREN esports out of their own jungle, take the sentry, gain some, control over the rotation, over the map itself, probably settle for the gold mine early game, have priority and emphasis on that gold miner. It gives 400 gold for a reason. It is quite a big objectives coming into any game. But talking about game, we are into the second match of this series between Elite 8 and BREN Esports. And casting this match alongside me, I request a duo. Thank you for your analysis, Minimizer. Okay, another awkward
Hopefully,
silence.
we have our requested duel joining you for some point during this game, actually.
I hope so as well. I don't want to be solo cast in this game, and I'm sure I request a duo will be more than happy to just hop on to this second game with me and alongside me. However, we do see Elite8, and it may save me still on the usual, rotation clearing up lane now. So we have I request a duo back. Welcome back, brother.
Hello, and it is good to be back into the second match between Elite8 and BREN Esports, and a bit of a turnaround there. Elite8 deciding to take away the alpha from the side of BREN this time, so a good draft coming out from, I'd say, both teams, but I do like Elite8's overall, especially going into that late game and into mid even with the Vox will work out well for them, but they need to be careful here in the early game as Mr. Jim putting a lot of pressure down with those glimmer shots and actually pushing them back into the lane. They are able to heal up thanks to the Imperial Sigil, but no farm to be stolen here. There's that one shop minion, but beside BREN Esports decide, okay, we're just going to go back to base, buy the extra item to be ahead of the enemy. But on the side of Elite8, we see them doing similar tactics, and now Hanjega is going to go take this initial rotation in the backs with Official Hein, is going to get a bit of ambient gold perhaps. They're going to give the farm over onto the Vox, and it looks like it is just for ambient gold at this stage, and they want to make sure Alpha also ends up in a good point. I'm not sure whether they'll go for the full kind of hyper carry mode onto this Vox.
I personally don't think so, but I mean, even hyper carry on this Vox is sitting on a mere 6 CS, whereas 7 CS now, and then of course you have Alpha on 10 CS, but the aggression that I really want to see coming out is actually from Elite8. They have more sustained damage, and we saw time and time again that Alpha is just so very strong in the early game because she has the full health, right? She can go in, don't have to be quite afraid, but we saw Mr. Jim on that Castro just able to push Alpha back out, and just backing away, and just leave Elite8 just backed away basically. And so BREN Esports now, BREN Esports is a very I want to say interesting, but that is not quite a word for them, because they definitely have two kinds of playstyle. When they are on the battle, they enjoy early game aggression, they just go so hard, and then they just simmer off in the mid game. And then they come back again, just ramp up, have got the items, they just want to put down the pressure. But, as for other games, with the Castro, especially with the Baron, you realize what BREN Esports generally would just like to do is basically just turtle up, not be aggressive at all, just play as safe as possible, and then come back when they have items. So they just lack the early game aggression. So coming into this game, I'm not surprised whatsoever. If they are just going to farm up, you're going to see a very, very stagnated, very passive game coming out from both teams.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I do think it will be a bit more of that kind of play style coming up from the side of BREN Esports, more or less. The only problem there is when you're going into an Alpha and a Vox who just scale so well into that mid and late game, you're also putting that challenge up for yourself going into those fights. Of course, if BREN Esports are able to do a good enough job at farming, if they're ever able to take the advantage, maybe they could even try secure some early objectives, then we might see that BREN Esports will have a better chance into that late game. But otherwise, I think Elite8 might be able to take this game a lot easier just looking at the drafts.
Well, I mean, just look at the draft alone, like we mentioned, Vox just does so well against a Castro, although before that poison shift is built, Castro will do relatively well in terms of poking down Hanjega on that Vox, but after the poison shift, Vox has gained extra form of sustain on top of Lyra's Imperial Sigil, so Vox will definitely be looking very strong in the early mid game as compared to Castro before Castro gets her item. But now Singguan, the 4 barrage is hitting both Hanjega and Official High, no doubt, although it's not doing much damage, but will just chase them away after Hanjega actually picking up that poison shift. So this is a time when Vox is just so much stronger as compared to Mr. Jim. Although Mr. Jim, I mean, stat to stat wise, you would think Mr. Jim will be on top, right? I mean, has got a Sorrow Blade, has got a Minion's Foot, a lot of damage. But Han Jaeger just got so much sustain, the Mortal Wound as well will just come in very, very clutch in a lot of 1v1 and a lot of team fights as well. So let's just see how it plays out. But I request you, just talk to me for a little. I mean, we are looking at a very late game team comp coming up from BREN esports. But yet, we are not seeing Elite 8 quite pushing their advantages now.
Yeah, I think that for Elite 8, they might have just triggered the caster's curse there, as you say. They're not pushing their advantage. They are looking for a bit more aggression here. They are being respectful of Mr. Jim with that Kestrel, and it's as you mentioned, the items, stats, you know, they match up, or in fact, Mr. Jim would be expected to have more damage with the Soul Blade and Minions, but Han Jaeger's, of course, with the sustain, and I think that's where they really went out, that Mr. Jim only has that burst damage as long as they have the Glimmer shots up, and then it really falls off once those go down, and they have to either just stop auto-attacking to get the recharge on them, or just continue using their basic attacks, which aren't as effective, whereas a lot of the time it will also be hard to make full use and full effectiveness of those Glimmer shots, as Han Jaeger's on this Vox going to be able to dodge out a lot of them with the Sonic Zoom. And then the overall kit that you talked about, once Vox has that Poison Shiv, you know, just has that sustain, that boost, that real kind of oomph needs to go into the late game. It helps with that transition. And meanwhile, Official Hein on this alpha is slowly starting to build up, has that aftershock already, more than likely going to go for the Dragon's Eye. I wouldn't see why not. And then we do see Han Jaeger's picking up the breaking point. So you're right, both teams slowly getting built up. I think it just comes down to the fact that the transition will be better for Elite 8. So they don't necessarily need to push more aggression, because I think it will be smoother for them overall. And a one-shot, one-kill going into the bush will spot out Official Hein, and BREN esports as a whole team going to be up in this lane, making sure that Mr. Jim not going to get jumped on by that alpha. And good job by the, I was going to say by the Arden, but he's actually vanguarding himself in that situation, so it won't be up for another 3 seconds, but good use of the death from above on the backline to keep Elite 8 zoned. However, Elite 8 looking kind of comfortable here as they push up to this initial turret, and they're going to go under turret. As you see Official Hein doing a lot of damage to Sync 1. There's going to be the Gauntlet catching out, guessing Official Hein and Sync 1 in it all alone. Meanwhile, Anime saved me a bit of an odd use with the Imperial Sigil. No one really to follow through behind them. There's going to be the Fountain on the side of Elite 8 as we now see Official Hein going into that backline, being forced to stay in the fight because of them. There's going to be the first blood actually going over to the side of Elite 8. I'm not sure. I didn't quite catch that. I was watching Official Hein as they were fighting out with Sync 1, but Han Jaegers and Mr. Jim going to trade out their lives.
Yep, and this is what I'm talking about in this mid-game when, you know, Elite 8 just have got so much more damage as compared to the side of BREN esports. They could have just pushed the advantage much earlier. They kind of waited to say about the 8-minute or the 7.5 minutes into game before they actually started pushing, whereas they can actually just push at 5 minutes in after, you know, Official Hein got the first aftershock. Elite 8 could have had enough damage to just go in and just put down so much damage already. But looking over to what, you know, the entirety of a BREN esports is actually building, we have Sync 1 actually settling for that Shattered Glass and not the traditional Frostburn build. That means the side of BREN esports definitely do not have that soft CC the Sky usually provides for the team, barring that from above. So there is no slow coming up from Forward Barrage. There is only just hard, you know, just raw crystal damage. But now Elite 8 definitely just looking very strong, looking very comfortable. They have got items, they have got the damage. They can just push into this second tier turret if they so want to. But however, they can just go for the gold mine. Once again, Elite 8 not really prioritizing on the gold mine at all.
Yeah, Elite 8 being a bit cautious here to not go for it yet. They do have the advantages of taking the first turret away, so they have that roaming potential. There's going to be Alpha going in with the Termination Protocol, and then the Arcane Passage followed through. Anime Saving Hanyegas is going to get caught out in that gauntlet with the rest of BREN esports, but Hanyegas need to be careful on that front line. There's going to be the Fountain used for them to keep them alive and in the fight, and Vox going to go in after the Alpha to just finish off these kills, getting a double for himself. Sync1 kiting back, doesn't have that Frostburn as you mentioned before, so not going to be able to slow down Official Heinz engage, but it could be more so for the fact that they're looking to get Alpha when they're down, just help burst them down so they don't get that perk from the Infinite Reboot. And it looks like Vox going to get the unofficial triple finally as he manages to catch out that Sky, not letting them escape, but they don't get the ace benefits out of it. They do, however, have the confidence to go into this gold miner now.
Yep, and at this point, the side of BREN esports really should just turtle up, right? Submit to the strategy that they are so good at, not just blindly just looking for fights and just pushing in. We constantly see Gassing's gauntlet. I really like Gassing when he's on the Ardent because his gauntlet are very consistent and very aggressive when he needs to be. But for some odd reason, Gassing can never throw down a gauntlet in defense at all. And a lot of gauntlets being thrown down, for all the team fights were very aggressive, trying to trap Official Heinz out. But trapping the Alpha out wouldn't quite help your team at all.
Yep, and we see a bit more aggression from BREN esports now as the death from above views forcing out the Arcane Passage as well, but they're just going to heal up on that backline with the Imperial Sigil. We see Hanyegas actually making a return back to base, leaving it up to Official Heinz and Anime Save Me to try protect this turret, but might finally fall into the hands of BREN esports. They have a few minions here to push with. There's going to be the death from above to help secure the objective. And now Hanyega's rejoining the fight, but they're not going to be able to catch up with BREN esports in time. So BREN esports doing a good job to be a bit more patient there and wait for the right opportunity to take their objective. And as you said, it is kind of like the whole fact that they need to work on their gauntlet usage as well in terms of defensive. And it isn't always so good to see a defensive gauntlet used, but I think that in the right situation, if they're able to at least stun out or trap out one person, especially this Vox who has no armor at all, if they can punish Elite 8 for bad positioning, they might be able to turn it around. But so far, Elite 8 doing a great job this match, playing it very well with the team comp they have.
Yep, Gassing should really prioritize on that Atlas Pauldron very, very soon. He's probably waiting for a couple of more goals before he can complete that Atlas Pauldron, but Echo will be prioritized instead of the Atlas Pauldron just to shut Hanyegas down on this Vox. I mean, I think that is quite the only way to stop Vox. I personally don't think that Echo is quite needed. Maybe for the long-term investment for that late game when you can draw yourself a Venn diagram, it'll be useful. But at this point in time, when a team really needs to just stay low, farm up, get their items, I don't think it's exactly the best item to get. But Anime Save Me, or the entirety of Elite 8 just playing so very aggressive.
Yep, and we see the gauntlet going down. There's going to be the death from up above. In the background, there's the Venn diagram you were talking about, but not being used effectively as Hanyega's just going to go in there, picking up the kills. 18 stacks on that breaking point. Going to follow through and be able to find Guessing on the backline. Meanwhile, Sync1 doing what they can, all on their lonesome to try run away from this fight. They do not have that Frostburn available to them, as you mentioned before, so it's going to be that much tougher. But Crystal Sentry is there, but Official Heinz going to manage to find the Prime Directive onto them and manage to pick up the kill. We now see they're going to also get the Crystal Sentry out of it. Might be even eliminating it. No, one more life left on that. And Goldmine, another good objective to move onto, as well as that turret, just pushing the side of Elite 8 so much further ahead into this match. We see them 32.6k gold at the moment, and if they're able to secure this gold miner, it's just going to help them that much more, over to the 27.2k on the side of BREN esports. So you can see Guessing flaring it out, really doesn't want to let it go over, but the one shot, one kill going to come out just too late, and there's not going to be a steal for the side of BREN esports.
Yep, Mr. Jim now has got double Tyrant's Monaco, working towards that hopefully a bone saw. If not, then it's a tension bow. Now it's quite rarely seen tension bow on the Castro. Usually people will go for the tornado trigger for the 100% crit. If not, then the bone saw just for the extra shield shred. But coming through from Han Jaeger, looking at his build, his items are so very cheap. So as long as Guessing X can hold his team together for just a tad longer, just for Mr. Jim to just complete the Aegis into that Bone Saw. If not, then for Sync1 to complete that final CP item, the side of BREN Esports would have had an equal fight. But that Echo definitely is not helping anything, but the official high very, very low.
Yep, as we do see the gauntlet jump dropping once more, and they actually catch out Hanyega's up in it, but he's going to be able to get out of there safely. They walk into the active camo trap and get stunned up, but Official Hein on the back line underneath this turret goes into Termination Protocol. It's going to go down, and this might be the chance for BREN Esports to turn it around as they manage to pick up the kill. Hanyega's low. There's going to be the Surrey Strike by Sky, but do they have it enough to catch up? They don't quite reach with the Forward Barrage, and there's going to be the Imperial Sigil to get Hanyega's and Anime Save Me out there safely. But will BREN Esports be aggressive with this opportunity they have? They've only got another 15 seconds on Official Hein, but it looks like Guessing Too Low is going to have to go back to base and heal up, grabbing some more vision as well, just preparing for the next fight, because we now know Kraken up on the fold going to be another big objective, especially for trying to push and end out these matches. And with what we see here, it would be good for if BREN Esports were all full health, they might have had the confidence in that kind of situation. But right now, they still are on the back foot. We still see they've only got 2 kills to their name on the board over to the 8. There's 1 slip up from the side of Elite 8, and whether they're going to give BREN Esports that opportunity again, I'm not sure, because they've been playing it so well so far, and they're that much ahead in items that I told you earlier, they're going to have a smooth transition, but I did not expect it to be this smooth.
Yep. Now Mr. Jim actually completing that bone saw, so Mr. Jim can definitely just shred through the metal jackets coming across the board off the side of Elite 8. But whether or not he is given a chance, or can Alpha or will Alpha just jump onto the back lines and eliminate Mr. Jim almost immediately? One shot, 1 kill comes out, hits nobody. And Sync1 really has to dance around the Alpha, and it's not quite an easy job. We have Official Hein on this Alpha, definitely doing a very good job catching out to this very mobile Sky as well. And it may save me trying to stop any potential steal coming out from Guessing or the side of BREN Esports.
There's going to be Guessing going with the gauntlet, the double gauntlet, and they do manage to catch our Elite 8 inside it. The Depth from above doing a good job, but Kraken so close to being captured, yet I don't see BREN Esports being able to take this one as Vox jumps onto the backline, manages to pick up the Kestrel. They manage to get the secures. Sync1 so low at this point, just trying to run away from Hanyega's, but is going to get caught. Oh my god, Sync1 with the Surrey Strike might just get out there, but Anime Save Me with the slow, the Imperial Sigil going to pick up the ace for the team, and they are going to push in onto this anchor turret. Might even be able to get it before the Kraken reaches it, and it looks like they had the damage to do so. Official Hein on that Alpha, and Hanyega's just so built up right now in terms of items, and we see that they are pushing in against this turret. And Sync1, because of falling earlier, or later I should say, in the team fight, meant that they're going to be up that much later to defend the base, and the first turret will already be gone. As we see Official Hein diving in deep with the Prime Directive, making their way onto Mr. Jim. They do get caught up in the stun, did not use the Termination Protocol, however, and Sync1 trying to take out Hanyega's. To do so, they might still have a chance of finding this one, as Official Hein, forced to use the Termination Protocol, is going to go into that Infinite Reboot stage. They managed to get the kill. It's only Anime Save Me on this Lyra up, as well as the Kraken. They might be able to turn this one around, but they need to take the Kraken out now. Sync1 just focusing Anime Save Me, not sure if that's the right idea, leaving up to Mr. Jim to go for the Kraken. Kraken only a few more hits here, but there's going to be the Gauntlet, and it looks like their attention split too much. This game going to go in favor of Elite 8. Finally, well deserved and well played by them. They are able to win it out, and just barely at the end there with that Kraken push, able to get the game.
Well, I mean, even if the Kraken do not take the crystal down, the side of Elite 8 definitely have, but the damage can just take Guessing X. Oh, no, actually no. had Anime Save Me not with those, just movement speed from those Imperial Sigils, Anime Save Me goes down, and then the Kraken goes down, then BREN Esports would have stood another chance. But that didn't quite happen overall. But I was just quite surprised as to how BREN Esports did not just manage to just hold the game out. And Mini Maita was actually talking about it earlier. Saying something along the lines of whichever team that has got an alpha has got a higher win rate. And I must agree with him. I mean, alpha basically is the core of teams winning.
Yeah, that is true. And so to speak more about the core of teams winning and what the side of BREN Esports could have done better, whether it is, as Mini Maita himself says, the alpha pickup, we will be going over to Mini Maita to hear a bit more about that.
Thank you, Jewel and Luxuria for that match. Well, I think Alpha has more than a high chance of winning. Alpha has a 100% chance of winning so far, just seemingly to be OP. And I did when I was reading through the patch notes, I thought that's quite a nice buff to Alpha in Ale. That's quite a nice buff to a B as well. Oh wait, did a perk and ultimate get buffed? Alpha's going to be quite good this patch. And yeah, we've clearly found out that there aren't that many counters. Obviously, Rhyme would do really well. I think the Sky last pick wasn't the best decision against Alpha. Both teams have now tried to counter Alpha with Sky, and it just hasn't worked. So I think that really could be a change-up that would be a smart pick, because Frostburn isn't a good buy against Alpha in general, because she has so much chase with her B and with her A that you're not really going to slow. The Frostburn slow isn't really going to help you a lot against an Alpha. So I think the Shatterglass first was fine on Sky, but I don't think Sky was the right pick. I think they could have gone more like a Rhyme would have done really well. Ozo could have done really well against Alpha, because Alpha won't burst Ozo down. He can sustain, he can match her and sustain, and he could also have dived onto the backline, onto the box. So I'm really interested to see how early this Alpha is going to be picked in the next game, or if B-side are going to ban her away, because we've seen A-side pick Alpha both games, Luxuria.
Yeah, I mean, Alpha is definitely priority. If they do not want to play it for themselves, they should just ban the Alpha out. But I don't think anyone on the A side would be that not mindful as to just remove the Alpha where they can just pick it for themselves. But coming into this third match, I'm not surprised if BREN Esports, or rather, if I'm not surprised if Elite 8 will just immediately remove this Alpha, because they are on the red side, they have the chance to, but then that will leave Black Feather, if not then Rhyme, Lance open as well. Elite 8 in the previous match, actually, in the first match, banning out Lance against BREN Esports. What we do see, BREN Esports is very comfortable with Arden, picking out Arden in both games as well. So Lance isn't a priority pickup for the side of BREN Esports. So maybe whatever the BREN Esports were to ban now, probably the Black Feather, Elite 8 can just remove the Alpha.
Yeah, speculation is over. The draft is ready for the final game between BREN Esports and Elite 8. So without further ado, let's head on into the draft. And I think that you can say that Lance isn't a priority, but the problem is that they first banned Lance, so you can't know. All you know is that Arden is at least the second highest priority pick, because they went for Arden. BREN Esports went for Arden in both games once Lance was not available. So maybe, I think the smart decision from Elite 8 is leave Alpha open and just second pick it on B side. Because it's been second picked on A side, so Elite 8 can just second pick it on B side, and there's no reason not to.
Yep, and I mean, a lot of the drafts have been just so much emphasis on this Alpha. That Black Feather ban coming through from BREN Esports, definitely not a surprise. Black Feather has been prioritized so far for every single game, but the side of Elite 8 banning out that Petal, and then BREN Esports not picking out Alpha for themselves, instead settling for that Idris. What do you think, Mini Maita? What is happening?
The Elite 8, that's a smart ban from Elite 8. BREN Esports like to play Weapon Petal. Mr. Jim's very comfortable on it. So banning that away, first ban, is completely fine. BREN Esports, I am surprised with the Idris pick. I didn't suspect that. I thought they'd pick Lance or Arden as a priority. That's really something that maybe BREN Esports are thinking they have, that is their Alpha counter if they don't want to play with it. Idris Alpha is a comp that has so much dive. It's an really old comp that has been played before, Weapon Idris Crystal Alpha, where you just dive into whatever backline they have. And Elite 8 have decided this time they want the Arden. They want to deny it away from BREN Esports. So that's why the Lance ban still comes through from Elite 8. They just delayed it a little bit, maybe making BREN Esports think that they didn't need to first pick their captain because they'd be able to get it later on. Now, they've got Arden. They could pick Alpha second pick Elite 8 if it's not banned by BREN Esports. I think that would be quite a smart thing to do.
Yep, and BREN Esports picking up the Idris definitely that threw me off. In the first game, they went up against an Idris themselves. They pick up a Petal. They definitely destroyed that Idris. So maybe BREN Esports, like you mentioned, maybe have got a comp in mind. At this point, they can't just easily remove that Rhyme on the table. Else, I'm not surprised if Elite 8 would just pick up the Rhyme for themselves. If not, they just ban out Alpha. Two main heroes for them to ban out. And going up against the Lance, okay, so there you go. They ban out Alpha. That means Rhyme would probably not be coming out. But we saw Elite 8 not really putting emphasis at all on that Rhyme. They haven't quite picked it for themselves yet. They haven't quite picked it for themselves. They have banned it yesterday, but that is against 500 Fuzz, and that's 500 Fuzz actually banning the Rhyme out, not themselves. So coming into this match, a lot is on the table, right? It's who that goes into the finals. So the last pick. Sorry, not the last pick, but the pick for the side of Elite 8 will be that of Vox. Vox did very, very well against BREN Esports in the previous match, and I don't know why Vox was let through instead of BREN Esports picking up the Vox for themselves.
Yeah, it makes sense because they really wanted to ban Alpha, because I think BREN Esports knew they weren't going to get the Alpha second pick on A side, because Elite 8 were just going to well, Alpha's won every game so far, let's just pick her. And so Elite 8 then obviously able to pick up the Vox for themselves. Now BREN Esports, I think Taka would be a really smart final pick here, and it is going to be the Idris Taka comp of reasonably recently, not as far back as the Idris Alpha comp, but Taka had a nice indirect buff because of Aftershock. Idris Taka was always a comp that worked well. It was kind of countered by Grace, because Grace's ultimate would just deny your burst damage. So they've got the Grace themselves. They're up against an Arden, who can work quite well against it, but won't work too well. Last pick for Elite 8 should be Rhyme. It would be great against Idris, all right against Taka, but just completely makes their comp almost useless against him. And then Arden can put all of his efforts into killing Vox. Rhyme can build Dragon's Eye, build up his stacks, and I think that Elite 8 will win draft if they do that.
Yep, Rhyme is the most sensible pick, and there we have it. We do see a Rhyme coming through from Elite 8. And Rhyme is just so tanky, it's almost quite impossible to just burst Rhyme down. In fact, there are in some cases, I do actually expect Rhymes to build Dragon's Eye, because he can just stay in fights for so long. He's just so tanky. Granted, with the Dragon's Eye pickup, you do not quite have that extra crystal power when the start of the fight. You quite need 4 stacks to match the Shatter Glass that you eventually get. But with the amount of time you are in fights, it's quite easy for you to get the 4 stacks anyways. And with that Vox just poking from the back lines, you can almost immediately just slowly just wear the entirety of BREN Esports out. But the Taka and Idris comp, I want to say Taka, it's fine. You can burst down that of Vox. And if you and Idris just go on to Vox together, Vox will be will just be eliminated very quickly in the team fights. And on top of that, you have the Grace for the extra sustain as well. But I don't think Taka just does well against that of Rhyme, and I personally don't think Idris should be first pick, seeing how strong Vox have been in these past few games.
Yeah, I think Idris' first pick is very different to what we were expecting. I wonder how BREN Esports are going to use this, because obviously the way BREN Esports have to play is they have to dive onto the Vox, they have to execute Vox with a double dive before Arden can save him with a Vanguard, or even after the Vanguard, you've just got to burst through it. And then it kind of becomes a 2v3, and even though Rhyme is really good against their comp, it's hard for anyone to win a 2 versus 3. And so that is what BREN Esports have to do. I still think Elite 8 are in a better position. They have the Vox, really strong hero, can kite for a really long time. And they have a Rhyme, who is a counter pick, literally the perfect counter pick for Elite 8 to pick against what BREN Esports had decided to draft. So as long as they execute their comp properly, I think it should be reasonably simple. But then again, if BREN esports take a fight at level 6 when Taco and Idris are level 6, and Elite 8 let them snowball from there, then it could go BREN esports' way.
Yeah, but it will not be a difficult thing as well for BREN esports to just, turtle up and then farm up and then get to level 6, like you mentioned, and then, just snowball from there. Because let us all just be honest, right? Rhyme do not quite have the best ganking potential, although we've seen a lot of Rhymes coming through the past few days when it's let through. And the amount of early game pressure that Rhyme can put out it's quite immense. But all in all, he's not quite that ganker that we are quite used to. You can have Arden just vanguarding him into the fight itself, just chilled winds, root someone on the spot, and then just throw out Winter Spires. But Taka can easily get away from you once Idris unlocks the divergent path, can easily get away from you as well. And you risk yourself getting stunned out or getting thrown up airborne by Grace. So I think BREN esports have got quite a good chance going up against this comp, as long as they play well, they play reserve, get to their level 6 and try to snowball from there.
Yep, so now we are loading into the house to unfold for the final game between BREN esports and Elite 8. So casting this game, it will be yourself, Luxuria, and the fantastic I Requested Duel.
Hello, I am back once again, and we're in the third match here between these two teams. Just shows how even and how well these guys are playing together. I think it was definitely from the start going to be a close matchup, unsure of who would win. I mean, today, all in all, we had that first matchup between Impunity and Renegades, and that's always quite the grudge match to be played here. And now we see these two teams, Elite 8, a very good team, and of course up and coming have been BREN esports themselves, who have been playing quite well. We saw that classic weapon power pedal in the first match, but since then just hasn't been let through, and the focus kind of shifted more onto that alpha, which we saw banned out into this match. So in response to that, the picks and drafts that we've seen here, it's definitely interesting to see on the side of BREN esports, going for that Taka. It fits into this comp, and that's why they've gone for it. And I think even though Vox and Rhyme being very good current meta heroes and being very strong on their own accord, as you mentioned earlier, if they're not able to catch onto Mr. Jim on this Idris and Taka, especially in the late game when Mr. Jim will be able to have that blink with the Shroud step, it'll be a lot harder to do so. That BREN esports might be able to win this one out. However, Vox just such a good laner at this point, and Mini put it away. He's like, well, nothing really changed with Vox, and we do see the first blood going down to Mr. Jim. Mr. Jim falling as Anime Save Me, picking them up. Not sure what happened there. Maybe guessing having some internet connection issues. They're not actually able to save him, or just a bit of a misplay. You could call that. But going back to what Minnie said, just Vox being such a good pickup as well. There's so many strong heroes in this current meta that I think drafting is quite a difficult thing to do at this point, because you've only got 2 bans each, and it's all about the counterplay there.
Yep, and we've said it before that, Vox hasn't quite been out of the meta at all. There was one point in one of the patches, I think it was 2.7, where Vox indirectly received the nerf because of the changes made to Poison Shift and Tension Bow, right? We thought Vox would just be phased out of the meta, but so strong. I mean, for the last few patches, even not a couple of patches, but the last few patches, Vox has been so dominating in the meta. Even when Baron was around, when Baron just get first ban and then Vox immediately picked up afterwards, Vox has just been dominating the meta, and it's quite difficult to just phase this hero out because he's just so flexible as a hero. You can just build anything on Vox, and Vox will have the kite abilities, and any heroes that have got the mobility like that of Vox generally will be favored in the meta. Firstly, the mobility is key, right? To just kite around, run around, dance around with enemies, not to get caught out, reposition yourself. So a lot of things are happening for Vox, and Vox is one of the carries that has got a silence, and that is very valuable in team fights. No doubt the silence isn't the longest one in game. In fact, it's the shortest one, but it is quite a valuable CC overall.
Yeah, and I do agree with you there. It's what plays into Vox's kit of him being so strong overall is that, well, if the enemy isn't going to be able to catch you and they aren't going to be able to hit you, then you have that opportunity to put out more damage than the enemy, technically, and you're going to be taking less damage. I mean, I can imagine Vox just saying to the enemy, catch me if you can, while he dances, and it's how I like to explain it. Vox just dances around the enemy. It really is as it is. And we do see here now Elite 8 putting some pressure up into this lane. And meanwhile, Taka actually working on or waiting on the backs from the side of Elite 8 ever so patiently is going to be able to find them. So able to steal those camps away. And it will be fairly worth because they are worth the most gold to him. So a good trade out there. Rhyme not noticing that it was around the corner. So good job by Sync1. Good plays there to make sure they took it behind the corner rather than just taking it where the minions spawn. Otherwise, he might have been caught out in the enemy jungle. Yep. And it's just going to help them that little bit more, especially after losing out the first blood gold. It's the only difference we see here in terms of economy. We've got 10.7k on the side of Elite 8 and 10.6 for the side of BREN esports. So really not much difference right now. But do you think we're going to start seeing some aggression soon with first item pickups coming around the corner?
No, I think Sync1 really wants to get those aftershock, get, his items before actually starting any form of aggression, because currently Sync1 is sitting but only at a Storm Crown, not a lot of damage unless of course you count basic attacks and the true damage coming through, but a lot of aggression, a lot of lane aggression, putting, basically the entirety of BREN esports, pushing the entirety of BREN esports backwards.
Yes, definitely Elite 8 at this point, pushing them backwards as they take the first turret and a second blood, getting the grace as they lock them down. Chill wins, after Rhyme was able to land the Winter Spire, of course, and now we do see Elite 8 just backing out there. Sync1 jumping on the backline, but really not being able to do anything at this point. You're right about that. Taka really needs some more items on board and would hope to get enough items to really focus down that Vox before he starts building up too much shield, because we can always see Vox in the early game did decide to go for that light shield.
Yep, and we've mentioned it before that Taka, currently, I don't think that Storm Crown works very, very well on Taka anymore. Taka really wants that early game burst, so maybe the Storm Guard banner into, say, an Aftershock or a Shatterglass into Clockwork would work the best for Taka, gives you the highest burst, and just push you into the early game. Because what a lot of players in Southeast Asia get as Taka would be 2 weapon blades at the start anyways, right? You are going to use that for the initial damage, initial clear. You don't quite need the Storm Crown as the first tier 3 items. Firstly, doesn't quite do a lot of damage. And secondly, with the health increase, your Storm Crown just gets worse and worse. There is no reason anymore but just to clear for you to get a Storm Crown. And the amount of raw damage coming through from Elite 8 is just so much, just don't justify the Storm Crown pickup anymore.
Yes, I think Taka, one of those heroes who is a bit harder to play in the current meta, and we'll have to see about that as the side of Elite 8 popping down the gauntlet, trapping BREN esports inside them. There's going to be the Valkyrie to trap them out, and Rhyme going to be able to pick up the first kill onto that Idris, and Taka just having to use Pikaku to get out of the fight. Might decide to re-engage here, but if anything, just doing so to save their turret at this point. Going onto the Vox, actually able to pick up the kill, but does get rooted afterwards. Luckily finds Pikaku to get out of there. It will have to be on Anime Save Me into the late game to hold on to a few flares, or maybe even build a contraption just so they have that vision to take out Pataka, making sure he doesn't escape from those team fights, because I can imagine how crucial it will be at some points if they're not able to pick up the ace when it's necessary.
Yep, and we do see it's just quite overstaying coming through from Han Jaeger that allowed Taka, that gave Taka the kill. Taka, fortunately, very quickly building into that Aftershock already. So at this point, Taka should look for a fight, but with the amount of shooting coming through, and Han Jaeger already can pick up the Aegis, it will be very, very tough for Taka to just instantly burst him down. Granted, like we mentioned yesterday, if you have more health, it works.
Yep, and we see Taka doing the right job of going onto box on the backline, but does get kited back instantly, and there's going to be Idris trying to fight it off, but needs to be careful of not getting caught out by the Winter Spire coming through by the Rhyme. So it's a bit of counterplay as we see Taka managing to find Hanyegas and Official Hein able to find Mr. Jim. So both the junglers able to get onto the carries, but the question is, are they able to catch out the Taka? They do with the gauntlet, so it's more than likely they'll be able to pick up the kill. Sync1 does go down to the chill wins. Official Hein with the upper hand, and that is just Rhyme being that much better in the current meta, being such a strong pick. And although it doesn't counter and doesn't work so well against the Taka directly, it's still just a good hair alongside that Arden. If he's able to land the gauntlets correctly and able to trap out the enemy team and open up those opportunities for Official Hein to get those kills and be in that close call situation, I think it definitely wins out most of the time.
Yep, I really like the fact that, you know, they actually went for the gold mine this game and just putting emphasis on the snowball potential, because they do realize that Taka can immediately delete Hanjega if Hanjega wasn't careful. And in 2 team fights already, I enjoy seeing how Sync1 is playing on this Taka, very target focused, constantly just jumping on top of Hanjega, not quite giving him the space to breathe and the space to just dance around like you like to say. But no, BREN esports definitely still have got what it takes to come back. They just need to farm up Mr. Jim, just need the items. Currently he's sitting on that Sorrow Blade, on that, you know, Poison Shift. Don't quite have the damage as compared to Hanjega. Hanjega do not quite have the items, but what Hanjega can really do is just stack up on those breaking point stacks, get sustain as well with that Vanguard from Arden, and on top of the Vanguard you have, or rather Hanjega has got that Poison Shift to help out with that Vampirism or Lifesteal going for him. So the longer he stays in the team fight, the more powerful Hanjega get. As with Official Hein, now that he gets the sustain item in the sense of the Eve of Harvest.
Yep, and we will have to see whether the Eve of Harvest will be that, the Eve of Harvest, whether it will really pay out. You are going against the Taka, but Taka is going to be focusing down onto Hanjega, wait for it goes through, and they're able to trap him down, but only for a second. Divine Intervention going to come through, manages to save his life. However, the Fountain already popped for the side of BREN esports earlier when they backed out of that fight, and now Elite8 pushing onto this anchor turret so early into the match. A lot of aggression coming out here, and they're going to try and utilize it all. They are deciding to run away from this team fight. However, maybe the smart play, you know, let them bait the side of BREN esports into fighting them in better territory, whereas rather than fighting them under their turret, because they know for another at least 30 seconds Guessing isn't going to have that fountain.
Yep, and Guessing do not have the fountain for the next 20 seconds, but at this point you see that, you know, Mr. Jim is going for the tension bow. So what Mr. Jim is doing really is just settling for the very old Idris build. Do I like it? Not so much. I mean, there is so much changes made to Hero's health, Hero's defenses. I personally don't quite like the tension bow pickup. I would personally prefer if, you know, Mr. Jim went for crit. Crit will work just so much better, a lot more damage, and you really want the burst as well.
Oh, Taka jumping onto that backline, but does get rude. There's going to be the Valkyrie, and it doesn't really catch out anyone except for Guessing slightly. Meanwhile, Mr. Jim trying to go around the backline gets caught out, and this Rhyme just doing so much work, instantly taking down Mr. Jim to follow through with catching out Sync1 on that Taka, and didn't even pick up the Dragon's Eye. As you said, you know, it is a bit of an optional pick to substitute it for the Shatter Glass, where we do see they went for the Shatter Glass first off into the Eve, and I think that provides a bit more instant damage into a fight with someone that's going to be in your face really quickly like the Taka and the Idris. It's not a bad pickup to go for that rather than trying to expect to build up your stacks on an item like Dragon's Eye, even if it might get you more crystal power in the end.
Yep, and I mean, Dragon's Eye is maybe, say, the third or fourth item coming through, but generally that's not what you'll see from Rhyme. Rhyme really likes the pierce because he wants you to stay in the fight for a very long time. So maybe the Shatter Glass into Eve of Harvest into Dragon's Eye will out-damage Broken Myth. Yeah, I think that will actually out-damage Broken Myth. If we consider double Shatter Glass has always out-damaged Broken Myth. So, coming into this, Anime saved me in a very, very dangerous position.
Does get jumped on and uses the Vanguard on himself. This now means Elite 8 have to be careful, as the Vanguard not going to be up for another few seconds, and it could mean Taka able to pick up a kill onto Vox on that backline, who's chasing down Mr. Jim, able to pick up that kill, and now just going back into the fight. Taka up in that top rush, not going to get spotted out. However, guessing on Grace, does get chased down for a bit, and now Elite 8 turning their attention back to the lane, maybe wanting to push this through. Not really any objectives on the fold for them to take at this point, as it's hard to really push up to that initial turret, but they're going to go for the gold mine anyway. I was just looking at the amount of gold that gold mine had, and I didn't think it would be worth it, but Elite 8 maybe considering any gold at this point to push them even further is worth it, as they get 158 per member, now sitting at 35.7k over to the 28.5k. So Elite 8 looking very good into this game, and I'm not too sure what it is that BREN Esports are really able to do to get onto this Vox without getting caught out themselves.
I want to say what went really wrong for BREN Esports is just allowing the snowball from the start. Minimiter and I did mention before the start of game that Elite 8, or rather BREN Esports, have to play passive, but not all too passive till they get their level 6. But when they do get their level 6, what happened was Sync 1 did not quite have the items needed for that snowball, for that gank. What Sync 1 really had was just a Stormcrown banner, and that is quite frowned upon in this current update. Atlas Pauldron dropped onto Idris, but the side of Elite 8 will back off unless Hanjager or Official Hind may be looking for more.
Maybe indeed, as these teams looking like they're ready to fight, at least Elite 8 looking like they're ready to siege this initial, this anchor turret as they go in with the gauntlet. Great use of it. It's really keeping the whole team of Elite 8 out there, and go give it up to Anime Save Me for that gauntlet placement, just helping them secure their objective. However, now without the Echo, Anime Save Me is in a bit of a situation where the side of BREN Esports know they have an opportunity here to fight without having to worry about getting zoned out and having to fight so close quarters against Official Hind on that Rhyme. It might be the chance they need to get onto Hun Jaegers, but they need to make use of this opportunity soon. Mr. Jim does get caught out with the resonance behind that wall and the flare. Now both teams just being very cautious going into this next fight.
Very, very cautious, but Elite 8 ever so slightly inching towards a 10k gold lead, now sitting at 40k for themselves, and the side of BREN Esports slightly lesser, 100 gold lesser to that 32,000, but now a fight will break out.
It will indeed. Taka trying to jump onto that box, but gets vanguarded, and there's going to be the wait for in return. Luckily, Official Hind not able to find anyone, at least luckily for the side of BREN Esports, but Han Jaeger is going in deep with the chase. They're now going to turn around, might even try to start this Kraken up. I think Elite 8 in a very good spot, not too much to lose for themselves with all the turrets that they have up, and they're going to try burst this one down. There's going to be a contest from the side of BREN Esports as they go in. Taka onto the backline, will get locked up by the Rhyme into the Chillwinds, into the Valkyrie, gets stunned up, and Sync 1 looking solo. There's going to be the Divine Intervention to keep him alive, but Grace going to walk into that gauntlet wall, getting trapped out and killed by Hun Jaegers. Hun Jaegers now trying to chase down the Idris. Meanwhile, Official Hind was looking for that Taka, but he snuck past him and just manages to get out there alive. Speaking about getting out there barely alive, Hun Jaeger's almost falling to Mr. Jim, but does manage to get the Fountain of Renewal benefits to heal him there, and the ace going over to the side of Elite 8, who you said just at this point so strong and inching up to that 10k gold lead. Definitely going to be able to take it by the time they finish out this game with this Kraken push. We do see 23 seconds until Sync 1 is up. Guessing will be up now, and Mr. Jim in another 10 seconds, but we can see Vox already went into the base to make use of that and almost took down both turrets there.
Almost, but not quite. But the Kraken will definitely start pushing in. Helga's only objective and only, one thing to do. Helga's goal is basically just to push turrets down, and with how tanky Kraken is as now, hope they got the drops.
There's going to be the gauntlet indeed, an early one not inside the base, but it's going to be well utilized as they're able to pick up a kill from it. Not sure what Mr. Jim has been doing at the moment. Looks like he's given up a bit of bad sportsmanship there, I must say, but we're going to see the Kraken finish off the match as it takes down the Crystal and yowls at it. This is my Crystal, this is my map. Of course, Elite 8 able to win that one out 12-2. Very well played, 19 minutes, 16 in, and just a very good team comp put together and well utilized overall.
Yep, I want to say that BREN esports definitely came in very, very strong in the first series with that very unexpected weapon battle pickup. But coming the next two series, the first one,